Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchists Dave.
And I'm Nerdarchists Ted, and today we're cracking open a big one. Who controls the flow of information?
Under the dome. Beneath shimmering domes of crystalline energy, isolated city-states endure amidst a world of ravaged by chaos magic and monstrous aberrations. These domes shield civilization from the horrors beyond, acidic seas, blade grass plains, and petrified forests, while inside, intrigue, gladiatorial blood sport, gang rivalries, and flesh-warping science define daily life. Look down in the description below. You can find links to nerdarchy.com, where Nerdarchist Ted is cranking out articles on Under the Dome on a weekly basis.
Yeah, so Under the Dome drops typically on Mondays. Sometimes there's other splashes throughout the week that kind of link back to Under the Dome in some way, shape, or form, but I've got certain days that I'm doing certain things, and Under the Dome is Monday. Under the Dome, the flow of information is a contested battleground. It's monopolized by elites, subverted by outcasts, manipulated through magic, and weaponized in the internal dance between order and chaos. It's not just who speaks that matters, but who's allowed to listen, and what truths are made hidden beneath layers of crystal and control.
Institutional control and arcane gatekeeping. House Uthis and the Grind Barons manipulate educational access and magical knowledge, filtering information through sanctioned academies while suppressing chaos-related lore to maintain order and obedience. So, in Crystalia, the area that I'm currently running a game out of and running for quite some time, the houses are what controls all facets of the life in Crystalia. So by that very measure, they also control the information that is being given to the population, to the general populace. And I imagine many of the other domes are going to have similar setups too, right? If you can control the information and also the education of your populace, that is going to make your populace much more easy to control.
So in the area that I'm working on, I've got Valeria. Now, it's not grind barons, but it's a full-on magocracy. Council of 5 arc wizards keep order and control, and they do so through magic. And when you're a freaking archmage, like, you can be like, all right, I'm going to dominate, I'm going to wipe minds, I'm going to do all of these things. Are ruthless wizards who are plotting and scheming to kind of get one over on their counterparts while knowing that all of their counterparts are doing the same, but all of them can't move completely against the other because everyone has a necessary role to keep the city alive and moving forward. So the flow of information, the political intrigue there has a very, at sometimes heavy and sometimes very light hand. So information has got to be critical with how they're interacting with the humanoids that are outside the dome, how they're dealing with uprisings in the small or greater within the city itself, or the fact that there's something crazy about the area that this place is, that travelers from elsewhere frequently find themselves dumped within the sands, literally ripped across the plains and dumped into the black sands outside the city. So it's a veritable cornucopia of new life, new information, and having the ability to kind of control that is really necessary. So somebody who you might think, oh, well, this dude is just the average bartender. Well, chances are that information is being run up a network across the entire city.
Yeah, I feel like in Under the Dome, most of the domes, if not all of them, are going to have their versions of secret police, even more so than maybe in other settings, because everything is so tightly controlled, and it kind of has to be, because the survival of a settlement or city is dependent upon it. Because the cities are always constantly being bombarded by chaos magic, the fail safes that have been put in place need to maintain that. And just like you mentioned in your magocracy, that the aristocrat that I put together is the same thing.
Aristocracy.
It's been put together in a way that they do rely on each other because they all have key functions to keep the city going. And while you might be able to take over someone else, are you going to be able to necessarily take over the responsibilities? Because without that, what's the point in taking things over if things start falling apart, right? So
yeah, it's the delicate balance of can you do this accurately? Can you do this without problems? And like that was the fun element that I put together, because with mine, they don't really get along, but they have to. So like it opens the door for a lot of fun intrigue if that's an angle of what players want to play. And that's in fact that is what you guys kind of voted on for the game coming up after your Ether Skies game. I'm going to run Under the Dome here on the channel. You guys are going to be set in Valeria, and you're looking for a political intrigue dealing with this magocracy. I'm eager to see how you all like my dome versus what you've been doing with Crystalia.
That's the underlying theme, I think, in Under the Dome when it comes to the information, the flow of information in the domes from the top down. And even though like they may have slightly different setups, where in my dome, I feel like they're less adversarial. It's more of a us versus them. You know, right. We all live up here and live well. We recognize that like there's way more of them than us. So we constantly have to work together to keep them placated and happy so that they don't try and take what we have. And also, I do like the idea that you've got set up where it's like they all function under the concept of mutually assured destruction, right? So they kind of have to work together in order to make sure that that doesn't happen.
That's the other angle is we want all the domes to feel different. If you pick up and like, oh, well, this is all run by the aristocracy of these noble houses. Oh, well, instead of noble houses, they're mages and they all work together. Like that's the same level of intrigue, just you've changed the players by putting this kind of animosity that you've got the game of being able to play one against the other. And maybe through gameplay, you can find a way that, oh, well, one of these mages can be brought down because the things that they're required to do can now be taken over by this other thing, whether it be insert magic item, insert industry, insight, power granted to the mage that you're working for. And now if they handle 2/5 of these things, well, now they have made themselves even more critical to the city, and therefore that further secures their power base and stops the others from being able to move against them. So it was a crazy situation that went down a lot of rabbit hole thinking for a while when I was putting this together. Let's look at something beyond arcane gatekeeping. And what about underground networks and subversive knowledge? In Crystalia, we've got Master Dyson, the 3 Maggies, which are urban hags, and the Grotto Gruffs, which are the player characters. They disseminate forbidden truths and alternative narratives through street lore, secret alliance, and flesh-warped memories, creating a countercurrent of resistance.
Yeah, so one of the fun things about being a GM and running games and like trying to figure out how to like bring that information of your world into the game and into your players in a way that's interactive and fun, to me, is creating pieces for them to interact with. A lot of times they're NPCs, but there could be other things as well, going over other examples in the past. But in this particular instance, when you have these underground networks that do have the subversive knowledge, right? Like Master Dyson actually went up against the aristocracy. He ended up in prison, right? And the players had to break him out because he was actually trying to organize all the gladiator schools, right? And get them a better deal. And they saw this as a challenge to their power, right? They didn't want that particular information to go out of going, oh, wait a minute, we have these all highly trained and skilled warriors that are banding together to form another power center. So they immediately began trying to shut that down. They infiltrated his school. They made sure that he got captured and tried to sow discord between that gladiator school and the others. They're doing whatever they could do to make sure that they did not team up.
And that's a fun thing to do, is because of how the players reacted, that caused these pieces to move. Life is about action and reaction. So the tabletop story is going to wind up being the same thing. So when you've got these characters moving this piece and an NPC moving this piece, it's going to cause all of this shifting around. And the game that you've been running has not been all political intrigue. You've done an amazing job combining every aspect of gaming that is really out there into this one really long story that we've been lucky to be a part of. But when you start taking these underground resources, these individuals that are not connected in any way, shape, or form to the greater power, they've got the ability to kind of control their small piece of the world. And as the pieces move, their small piece has the ability to either grow or shrink. And the players usually are the ones that have a hand in making that happen.
And that's why the Grotto Gruffs get mentioned there, especially as you guys become power centers in of yourselves in this world. You're able to affect, which you guys have done on a small scale so far, but not too much. But you've been able to affect what kind of information and knowledge gets out there. You've kind of done it in a very focused way to get to certain ends. But imagine if you guys were to turn your desires to something greater, it would not be too hard with the power that you've accumulated. In the same way, like the 3 Maggies are also pretty powerful, and they also are able to give information and have given information and given you guys what you needed. But of course, they're hags, so it always comes with a twist.
I've been kind of milling some thoughts around about the 3 Maggies, and either I'm going to have something similar in Valeria, or to have them be something that they kind of exist across the domes, so that they've got the capacity to legitimately be the same characters in the same places. They might have a different name or they might not, depending. I've been giving those guys a lot of thought as to how I want to incorporate the concept of hag into my dome, just because they've been so much fun to kind of play off against, even though like my character hasn't made any deals with them. From a player perspective, I have enjoyed what you've done with them here. It can only lead to more fun later on.
They're a lot more fun as combative or antagonistic NPCs than they are as monsters,
Right.
in my opinion. And you get so much more mileage out of them that way as well. So highly recommend. And also, hags are a great source of information. Just got to be wary of the information you receive from a hag.
Indeed.
With that, social stratification and magical surveillance. The spires dominate vertical power and restrict upward communication, while constructs and enchantments ensure compliance, making information not just a resource, but a weapon in the battle between control and chaos. So Crystalia, as we mentioned, the Grind Barons run everything. And of course, they're surveilling everything at the same time, especially their interests, which are spread throughout the dome, which the dome is enormous. It has an underground or underdark aspect to it. It has the surface and then the spires above, which are these like flying towers and buttresses where all the nobility lives and does quite well for themselves, looking down on everyone. And literally the commoners, it rains the piss of the nobles from above, as Styx likes to say.
Now, I pulled this from the information that you had created for Crystalia. You had pulled up the size of a city in the real world. So these domes are not like, oh, this is a small village or whatever have you. These are legitimate cities.
Metropolises.
So Crystalia itself is 302.6 square miles underneath this pink latticework crystal dome. So like when you start thinking about how vast a place is, that's what we're dealing with. That's the size of these domes, these massive structures that are seen from a good ways off. You can have a lot to be able to work with. So when you're talking about magical surveillance, these domes have like the lower class living below and the upper class literally being built off of this skeletal framework of a dome that has, in the case of Crystalia, these pink crystal planes or panes. They live up above. Whereas in area, while the nobles still live above, it is far more industrial. And there's actual like the large exhaust tubes that go up and out over the dome, creating this cloud up above, feeding into the chaos storms that are not ever present, but far more active over Balearia than they are in Crystalia. But when you've got a magocracy, you've got far more magical surveillance with scrying and farseeing and underlings that are able to do these things in lieu of the archmages. You can definitely have far more magical surveillance, even to the point of like, oh, well, this spy is just under a greater invisibility following you around. Yeah, it can happen because there's a whole lot of magic. The setting itself, we've seen our characters rise from 5th level to we're now 20th, getting ready to go into epic levels. So like the setting itself has the capacity to grow beyond the usual levels. So therefore the things you're up against, including things like a magocracy, are going to have to be to that extent as well. So even when you think you're being unobserved, even when you think you're safe to spill a secret, it is entirely possible that there's an unseen eye watching, an unseen ear listening.
Yep. Maybe it's a Grind Baron or one of the ruling mages, or maybe it's one of the 3 Maggies. Could be, or maybe it's all of them.
So in a world where crystal walls filter more than just chaos, who decides what truths are worth knowing? All right, so that's a wrap on who controls the flow of information.
How to twist it in your games for maximum drama.
So hit that like, smash subscribe, and ring that bell.
Till next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.